Welcome. It is Health Hacks with Mark L. White. I'm Rusty Humphreys. He's Mark L. White. We also got a great guest here today. Mark, it's always a pleasure to see you. And, of course, Health Hacks is a program about what?
It's about sharing with everyone all the exciting, cutting-edge stuff that big pharma and big food doesn't want you to know about. Like the stuff that's going to help us live to be 120 and be healthy at the same time.
So Stanford Graham is here, and he's kind of one of those experts you're talking about, right?
Yeah, I actually met Stanford about a month and a half ago at CHS, Consumer Health Summit, and he's the CEO of Elements for Athletes. And I thought he was one of the first guys I met out there, and he has an amazing story and an amazing health hack.
Stan, welcome to the program. What is it that you do? Mark knows all about you, but we don't. Tell us a little bit about what it is that you do and what this health hack is.
Yeah, Rusty, thanks for the welcome. I'm glad to be here. The health hack is remarkably simple, although strangely absent in our lives here. That's simply ready access to whole foods. Clean whole foods that are combined in meals that are gut-friendly, nutrient-dense, and bioavailable.
Yeah, you know what was interesting, Stan, when I met you, was you told me that you were an attorney. And
That's right.
It's so rare to see attorneys have that midlife crisis and decide to do something else. Tell me about that.
Yeah, my crisis came really as a function of injury. I was coming out of some shoulder repair surgery that had failed a few times, and I've been an active guy all my life. I've trained 5-6 days a week since high school. That's just been my lifestyle. These surgeries really put me in a bad situation, coming close to losing the use of one of my arms, and not being able to train for several months put me in a bad place, or some other personal stuff that was going on. But eventually, coming out of this dark period of my life, one of the goals I had set for myself was, as I began coming out of this period, I actually began to walk and run as a way of self-medication, for instance.
Uh-huh.
And I discovered that my running times were improving. And so I set a goal, somewhat arbitrarily one night, that I was going to take a look at what it would take to run a 4-minute mile.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time I was 52 years old.
Wow.
And I just figured, look, Bannister he broke a 4-minute mile barrier. A race is a succession of a finite number of steps. And if he could do it, I could do it. I got into training, began to pursue that, found out that the world record for the mile for men's 50 and over, 50-year-old men and over, that the world record for that distance, the mile, was 4 minutes, 28.9 seconds.
Okay.
At that time. And so I said, well, I'm going to look on my way to 4 minutes. I'm going to break that too. So I started pursuing that. And as a consequence of that, really dialing in that type of training, getting a professional coach, I learned just how exacting nutrition was.
Uh-huh.
That in order to perform at very high levels physically, you've got to nail your nutrition. Anybody can train, but the success of your training is a function of your nutrition and your recovery. So if you don't feed your body and you don't recover, which two things hang together, you can go ahead and train however you want. You're not going to get you're going to compromise the consequences of your training perpetually and open yourself up to injury. So that's really what steered me from lawyer work to really what was my passion, which has been nutrition anyway.
So you walked away from your career as an attorney. Were you scared?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd been in the profession for decades and had done well, but there was a definite point of inflection in my life where it was clear that I needed to do something different. And I had an opportunity to start another chapter of my life.
Now you're talking about you were a runner. I've been a runner too for a long time. And now 4-minute mile, I can drive that really no problem. Were you able to get close to that? I mean, I'll be honest. I'm a 9.5, 10-minute runner, and but I also don't want to get hurt. I'm guessing running that fast at that age was not real good for your body, or maybe I'm wrong.
Rusty, the body is the human body is a phenomenal, piece of equipment and work of art, and is capable of doing remarkable things. Much of the limitations we face physically are really a function of what we think mentally. So, yeah, it's hard. A 4-minute mile, I'm not there yet. My fastest mile right now is just a little over 4 minutes and 32 seconds. Mm-hmm. So I'm just a couple of seconds off that world record pace, which I'll be able to make that up. I've calendared to get this done this fall. So hopefully we'll have some positive news coming out in October.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, but I'd say Russ is right. I mean, the fact that taxing your body, performing at that level, you do risk injury because you're really pushing the limits of your physical capacities. But the body can adapt. You can train it to do you can train it to do remarkable things if you give it what it needs. And I'll tell you, Mark, one of the things I've learned in Rusty as well is that your body, the older we get, the less tolerant it is of lies. You can't feed your body crap and expect to get something good out of it.
What's wrong with the food that we're currently eating now?
Well, a lot of that. Let's look at sources, Mark. We can break down sources. Where do we get our food? There is a diet called the American diet. I think we may be all somewhat familiar with that. But it involves a lot of edible products that aren't necessarily food. You don't pick nothing that you would get from the direct kill of an animal or harvesting fruits and vegetables. In products that are highly processed but edible, filled with additives and preservatives, colors, flavors, whatever those are. Chemicals that we can't describe, and in fact, even the regulations we have in this country that are required or excused from being put on ingredient labels is a mystery. I mean, it's the regulatory volumes that I've had to read just in building this line of products of natural, whole, organic, grass-fed, food has been a bit of an exercise, but the food that we have available, Mark, just isn't the best.
Like, for example, when you go to McDonald's, which number do you prefer? Do you like the number 1, the number 2?
Yeah, there you go.
But I mean, to you, is like everything McDonald's, unless it's like super, getyourelements.com stuff? I mean, do you go to any restaurants?
Sure. I mean, eating out is not prohibitive, but you become aware. Really aware of what you put in your mouth, what food you consume. Some of the challenges we have with our current food supply chain is that we're provided food, the source of which we don't know. We don't know how it's been handled. We have no idea under what conditions it was grown or under what conditions it was processed. There is zero transparency. Even getting a plate of food at a restaurant, you have no idea unless you're sitting at a diner and watching the cook, and the chef do their work. You have no idea what's gone on to make that food, what the conditions are, from the person preparing it to the equipment used. So lack of transparency is a big issue. Lack of knowledge of sourcing of the food. Where does it come from? I mean, a lot of our cucumbers come from Egypt, but we have no idea of what the growing conditions in Egypt are. I can tell you that they don't have an EPA over there, regulating what they spray on.
Yeah, what are you worried about? So what? It's in Egypt. Egypt seems like a nice place.
Yeah, it is. They use toxins and poisons, to control as pesticides and herbicides, et cetera. So do we here in the United States, right? We use pesticides and herbicides that are actually carcinogens, that are highly toxic to the human body. And there are some lawsuits that have just happened. Talking about lawyers, there are lawsuits that have culminated just within the last year against some very large big food companies that, in terms of liability for using products on plants that are highly poisonous and very destructive to the human body. So again, where food comes from and the conditions under which it's raised, the soil conditions, those kinds of things are all issues. I'm not suggesting that we have to be paranoid about it, but we need to be aware of what we're eating and where it comes from.
As a person who likes to watch what I eat, I go to Whole Foods, I make sure that everything is great and all, but what I have a lot of problems with is prepping food. And I know competitive athletes that will spend their Sunday afternoon prepping. I mean, I'd rather be boating. I don't know about you, but was that what led to Elements? Like how did you go about that to making a better mousetrap?
Yeah, let me to tie these two stories together of leaving a law practice, training to break a world record, and starting a whole food company. The need for the nutrition, Mark, the need to have a precise meals in terms of macronutrients. Macronutrients, you've got proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. As you know, fiber is the fourth macronutrient, but really the three primary ones are the proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. And I wanted those in specific proportions. I wanted those from specific sources. I wanted, for instance, my proteins to come from grass-raised animals. I mean, animals that actually eat what they're supposed to rather than being fed on high-volume corn or other body parts of other animals. I mean, cows aren't carnivorous, but they're fed bone meal, those kinds of things. Same thing with fowl, with turkey or chicken, those kinds of things. I grew up on a small farm. I wanted animals that were actually eating what they're supposed to eat to be a source of protein. And then in terms of vegetables, I wanted the source of my carbohydrates to be strictly high-octane vegetables, high in polyphenols, colorful vegetables that have a high concentration of minerals, nutrients, and phytochemicals. And then fats, I just wanted high-quality fats, coconut fat, avocado fat. But getting those specific groupings of food that are very clean, organically raised, et cetera, and put in a meal together with in a composition of volume of protein to carb to fat. You can look, but you just couldn't find it. I got tired. I hauled a food bag around for decades. National, international travel, intra-city travel. I had plenty of people making fun of me. A lot of the lawyers knew that I was the food bag guy. And so anyway, I decided to make what I couldn't find, Mark.
Well, how do you get it to taste good? I mean, when I was little, I used to go to Nassau and eat that freeze-dried ice cream, which is probably the most processed food you could think of. So when you told me you have these freeze-dried meals in a bag, I was expecting that, but instead I got something that tasted almost gourmet. Like, how do you do that?
Right. This is one of the points you make. I appreciate you making the point. The food that we prepare is freeze-dried. And we do that for a reason. Making it taste good is both science and art. I work directly myself. These are my recipes, and I work directly with our food scientists to just nail the taste as well as the nutrition value. So I chose the freeze drying technology because it's the best nutrition preservation technology on the planet. And that would also free me from refrigerators, free me from microwaves, and any other kind of apparatus like that, so that I could choose to eat what I wanted to wherever I was. And that was kind of the freedom I wanted. But making that taste good, that's some real work.
So when you travel now, do you bring instead of a bag, carrying a bag of hot foods or whatever? Tell me about that. Like,
Well, so I sent you some food, right?
you did?
And you can see some of the bags up here, these meals behind us. We have 9 meals right now. They're very lightweight, between 60 to 72 grams. So you can, put 10 together and almost get a pound. But these are very easy to travel with. Car, plane. I've got them at the office, but I do carry them, and I have a couple in my gym bag all the time. I'll have some with me in a briefcase. I have some in the back of the car.
I mean, is it the kind of stuff that you use like when you go camping? Is it that? I mean, I'm sure it tastes better and it's better for you. But when you go to the Dick's Sporting Goods and you're going to go camping, you get a bunch of freeze dried stuff and chili and stuff. Is that what this is?
Yeah. Well, in terms of the food being freeze dried, yes, this food is freeze dried. So, to prepare it, you simply add a cup of hot water, seal the bag, shake it up a bit, and wait 12 minutes, and it rehydrates. And you've got a premier top flight macronutrient dense meal. As it compares to Russ, the question, I like the question because when I put these together, I grew up hiking the Sawtooth and the Tetons. I grew up in Idaho. My dad took us boys up into the mountains frequently. So we knew what freeze-dried food was, but I'll tell you that when I was looking for a nutrition solution, I never thought about it. I never thought about the stuff we bought to eat on the trail. And the reason is because when you're not on the trail, it tastes like crap.
It does. It's the worst.
It's the worst.
I mean, it's like, what's next? You're going to have the MRE version of this? Like, Mark, what kind did you try? What was he said he sent you some. What did you try?
The best one that I tried was the chicken cauliflower with mango. That was quite tasty.
Chicken cauliflower with mango. Okay, that sounds better than the chili with the chipped beef that I took to Africa one time.
Oh boy, those will talk to you, won't they?
So what? Okay, so he liked that one. And you say you've got gourmet ones. What's on the menu? Yeah,
so Mark is referring to our coconut mango chicken meal, which is dynamite. It is fabulous. We have a country herb chicken, which is like a dill chicken that has mushrooms and potatoes, green beans. We have a broccoli cinnamon pork. And people hear that and think cinnamon and pork, but it's fabulous. Or a maple mustard pork, or we have a turkey chipotle scramble. So we have our first vegetarian meals. We call it a red lentil dal, and it is a fabulous mix of lentils and onions and turmeric and cinnamon and fennel seeds and raisins. I mean, it's fantastic.
So Stan, for me, my first question now after hearing all this is it like $50, $60 a meal? Is this really expensive?
Fortunately, no.
Okay.
Now these meals are $12 each. And so to find in terms of a competitive price for a meal, we're right down the middle of the fairway. In terms of providing real nutrient-dense value for a meal, we provide an extremely good value. For instance, Rusty, if I say, hey, let's go to the grocery store, go to the produce section and choose some fresh fruits and vegetables to make a meal with. And as we're doing that, I'll tell you that everything that you see, all the fruits, all the vegetables, all the berries, everything, all of it nutritionally is compromised by 50 to 70%, meaning that 50 to 70% of the minerals and vitamins in those fruits and vegetables are gone. And this is one of the value propositions that Elements Meals provides, is because when we separate a fruit or a vegetable from its life source, it begins to die. And within 3 days, for many fruits and vegetables, over half of the vitamins and minerals are gone. And so what we're purchasing at the grocery store does look fresh, but it's been shipped It's been stored for weeks, sometimes for months, sometimes for years. That's part of the transparency of our food supply chain that is opaque, right? It's just not there. So getting a nutritional value for the food that you purchase and consume, one of the elements, we excel at that. Because we actually flash freeze our foods within hours of harvest. Mm-hmm. And we only harvest this food when it's ripe. So the minerals, the vitamin content is exceptionally high. It's not harvested green or prematurely. Everything all that food in that bag, Mark, is flash frozen within a few hours of harvest, whether it's animals or plants. And so we capture all of the enzymes, we capture the vitamins, the nutrients, the minerals. The freeze drying process extracts only the water. And it leaves go ahead.
I was going to say, one of my friends, she's a competitive athlete, and I was showing her the bags, and she grabbed your chicken pomodoro. Uh-huh. And she's like, I'm taking this. Are your meals primarily for competitive athletes? I mean, who are buying these?
Yeah, the name of the company is you identified as Elements for Athletes. Most of the people that buy our food want to be healthy. Last year we were Melissa Hartwig and her company Whole30, gave us judged our food and said, "Man, this is dynamite. It's totally compliant." Spartan Races came to me specifically and said, "Hey, because they simply hadn't seen anything as clean as and as simple as the whole food meals that we had put together."
Mark, let me ask you a quick question. I don't mean to interrupt, Stan, but Mark, you're the expert in health hacks. Do we need to do all of this? Is he going overboard? I mean, no offense. I'm just asking the expert here because, Pizza Hut's got a lot of good food. So why not just go there or go to some other restaurant? Why should we go and get everything as fresh as Stan is suggesting?
I think the hack, though, for me, a hack is about a shortcut or to save time. And the hardest part, like, we all know what to eat. Like, people that want to be healthy know that we have to optimize our proteins. We have to eat whole foods. Right. They know that stuff intuitively. What's hard is actually putting in the time and the effort to put all of that in one place and then make something that actually tastes well. So I think the health hack is that everything's in one bag. You don't have to think. And that's what I love.
I'm with you on that. I wanted, in creating these meals, Mark, that was the biggest challenge, was the meal prep. I have 5 kids, single dad. You've got work. I mean, everybody's busy. And choosing to cook, choosing to shop for the right food, to get a recipe that you think is going to taste good, then to get the foods to do it, to cook it, to bag it, to refrigerate it, to put it in Tupperwares. I mean, you're going to trade something for that. You're going to trade time for that. And I love to cook. And there are great times when we can, go to the kitchen with the family and cook and have a fabulous time, but that's not always. And so I did want an alternative, Mark, as you say. It's a hack, is a shortcut. What we do is take the thought and time out of choosing the food, getting it ready, and eating it. And one of the things I like to say, Mark, is that I respect your nutrition time 100%. Mm-hmm. And I can reduce it. If you don't have time in the day to eat well, then you can still respect your body. You don't have to compromise. You can still have a completely nutrient-dense meal to nail your nutrition that day, that meal, without the requirement of time.
If you had to do it all over again, would you have gone into law, or would you have been an entrepreneur from the beginning?
I've been an entrepreneurial lawyer from the get-go. I've never been a desk jockey. So just strictly, I've always had something, other pursuits on the side, even as I was lawyering. Even at the height of my legal career, I've always done some other things. So,
would you give your younger version any type of advice? Anything that you've learned through your decades of wisdom?
I hope I've started to get a little wisdom, right? Applying knowledge in an intelligent way. I've got 5 kids, and I've lived long enough to learn that it wasn't necessarily what I said that taught them, it's what I did. What they saw me do. Because I never preached nutrition to them. I mean, we identified food in the house 2 different ways. There was food, and that was stuff that either came from the earth or was an animal. That was food. Everything else was garbage. That's what we called it, because that's what it is. So it was kind of fun to, raising kids when they say, "Hey, Dad, can I have some garbage?" Meaning like some cold cereal or something like that, But it was fun. I have learned that the kids learn from what we do much more than from what we say.
Excellent. Now, if somebody wanted to get your foods, how do they go about doing that? What's the, how would they go about? Is it over the counter, or do they order it from your website?
Yeah, so we're strictly a web-based business. And so everybody, you can go to getyourElements.com to get your elements. So you go to the website, getyourElements.com. There you'll find photographs of our food. You can click on that. You can see the nutritional chart that's incorporated on the packaging, the USDA nutritional chart. You can see the ingredient list. You can see the macros in each meal. You can see the caloric values. Everything's there.
If I'm going out and I left my bag of Get Your Elements at home, what one tip or hack would you give me when I'm going through my menu and looking at what to eat tonight?
Yeah. Well, I can speak, from me, I'd fill probably 2/3 of my plate with plants. And then the other third, I would have a protein source. I love fish, love beef. Mm-hmm. And so, but a good protein source, and then lots of plant foods.
No, I really appreciate your time. Any last thoughts or anything else you'd like to share with our audience? Or Rusty, are you still here? Or are you at McDonald's?
No, I'm getting ready to go to McDonald's after this. Thank you. No, I mean, you mentioned
get number 6. Get number 6.
Get the number
Rusty.
6. Okay, so fish is important. You like fish. You also beef. You said, which surprises me. So you can eat clean. You just have to think about it.
You have to. And I got to drop a footnote on the fish, because there's a study out of 3 years ago that identified the most toxic food in a grocery store is farm-raised salmon. Mm-hmm. So know what you eat, Know
your elements, huh?
Well, and a lot of people think that eating the tuna sandwich at Subway is healthy, and you actually find out that the tuna sandwich is the worst thing on the menu. Rusty, being aware, asking questions, being inquisitive, it goes a long way. It goes a long way.
You've seen the Impossible Burger now at Burger King. It's not meat, but it's grown in the lab.
That's an interesting deal, man. That's an interesting place that we're going, where we're growing meat in petri dishes. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, what a great way to end the program. So that's something to think about. All right, Stanford A. Graham, thank you very much. GetYourElements.com. Mark L. White, he's our host. Go to marklwhite.com to find out more. Gentlemen, thank you so much. And everybody, thank you. Make sure you subscribe to Health Hacks with Mark L. White at iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play and iHeartRadio. Tell your friends, Mark L. White, Health Hacks. Thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you.